Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu l'kol. I'm Jewish. I have the Siddish beliefs. I believe in Kabbalah and the realms, the Levites and magic, and the glory of God is found in the mundane and all that cool stuff about the God of Israel. And I am on the path to achieving a realization of what it means to have a life worth living. So, probably the core message of the story of the Hebrews and the Exodus and the role that the God of Israel portrayed in the Exodus is someone who had the ability to help and who also had a willingness to help. And most of all, that he actually did help, period. That's probably the most important and core message, is that the prayers of the Hebrews did not fall upon deaf ears. Their prayers made their way to someone who was willing to actually do what they needed him to do to get them out of there. Now, could there have been other methodologies for extracting the Hebrews from the Egyptian machine of exploitation and inequitable extraction? Probably. But the Exodus is the way that he chose to do it. So many people have meditated the reasons he chose that methodology, the wisdom of that methodology, what could have been better. People meditate that for however long they want to meditate that, but the fact of the matter is that it worked. When we got to Mount Sinai, he said, I am your God, the one who brought you out with a mighty hand. Now, why would he say that? If he is the ultimate omnipotent, omniscient God, would there ever be any question that he could pull that off? Of course not. The reason that was an accomplishment is because he's not the biggest possible version of God that you can think of. He's not. He's basically a vice president in a very large company. And let me tell you, in large companies, they have a lot of vice presidents. A whole bunch of them. They have authority to do things, but are they the end-all and be-all to everything? No. So that gives us more of an understanding of why that statement is so important, why that is so core to what we need to understand about who the God of Israel is. He says, I am the one who brought you out with a mighty hand. What he's really saying is, I went into that fucking meeting and I absolutely wrecked that place and I brought you out. Okay? Could the Egyptians, or we can say, could the other vice presidents of that company do a goddamn thing about what the God of Israel did? No, because by the time he got done talking to them in that meeting, they were glad for him to go. They were like, look, if you care so much about these people, okay, whatever, take them and go. Tired of that shit. And then he got fired after that, right? But the fact of the matter is that everything that he managed to acquire for us in that meeting has force of law. Okay? But it came at the cost of his job at that company. That's what people really need to understand. The God of Israel is not the creator God. And most Jews understand that. And most Jews know that. But that doesn't mean that they actually feel that. They know that theoretically. They understand it within the scope of language. But they don't necessarily have a full emotional, spiritual, psychological realization of the fact that the God of Israel is not the person who created anything. Okay? At most, he may have been working at a company that engineers life. Okay? It's basically like somebody who builds computers. Is the first person who built a computer the person from whom you buy a computer? No, there are companies that make computers, and what they do is they leverage the technology that was patented by the person who first created it. It's usually a bunch of different pieces of technology that have been patented by other people who actually invented it. They put all those things together and make different kinds of computers. At best, he was a vice president at a company that leveraged technology created by other people to make creatures that were suited to the task that he was trying to accomplish, or that his company was trying to accomplish. And he had very strong feelings about the quality of life and the rights of these beings that they were implementing to achieve their goals. And these ideas about what their rights were and what their entitlements were and their quality of life and what it should be like to live or experience or to perceive asiyah as a human, those ideas were completely and totally categorically opposed to what the company wanted, because those things weren't as profitable, right? To understand that, you'd have to understand more about the purpose of humans, but that's beyond this meditation. What we're really trying to understand is, okay, if there's a company that derives some kind of income, revenue, or wealth from the use or implementation of animals, what are the rules for how you treat the animals? Right? That's what kosher is all about. The Habrit, the covenant at Mount Sinai, the dream of Israel, the relationship between the Israelites and the God of Israel is all about kosher rules for humans. So God gave humans rules of kosher for how they interact with animals and how they derive benefit from animals. And he also implemented some rules of kosher with regard to how, quote unquote, gods can interact with humans. The contract that he gave us was revolutionary. It basically said, you can't inequitably extract from them. You can't do that. That's not allowed. If they want to engage in the activities that actually create income for you, then they can. And if they don't want to, you can't force it. It's the way it goes.